Jin, this is the Global Digest think tank group.
I am working now to move into just military history and leave the teaching behind. I enjoy. I've taught all kinds of ages. Like I've taught 3 and 4-year-olds. I've taught special needs kids. I've taught quote regular kids unquote all the way through. I guess all the way up to 26. I guess. In Michigan, we have schools that are specifically made for our cognitively impaired kids. And by the state law, they're eligible to go to school from their age 3 to the 26, this group of kids. And the kids I worked with there were, I'm going to use the labels that were when I was there. It changes as the time goes. We had kids that were extremely mentally impaired, which would be mild impairments type of thing, all the way to kids that needed medical care, and they were severely cognitively impaired. There was, they were basically students that were in wheelchairs and dependent on people to do everything. So I worked with those kind of kids, and then I've also worked with, like I said, the regular kids. So I've done it a good gamut. So I, over, I don't know, 30 years or so, something like that.
Almost retired for teaching.
Yeah, I'm ready to get out of it at this point. It's, right now I'm working at the Battle of Guadalcanal. It's a battle that took place in the Pacific during World War II. It was America's first offensive operation in the Pacific theater. And it lasted like 8 or 9 months. It was a very long battle. So I'm trying to look at all the intricacies of it. They're involved with the Marines were there, the Army was there, the Navy was there, the Army it wasn't the Air Force at that point, the true Air Force, but it was Army Air Force or Army Air Corps. So they were all there at the same time. And so I'm trying to look at that and seeing how the different parts are and seeing where I want to go with ideas of how to write about it, type of thing.
You need to travel in Asia or Pacific countries.
It's good to do that when you look at other countries with it all. By doing some of the research, you kind of get like the Japanese perspectives and stuff, that things have been captured, right, type of thing. So yeah, it's always good to try to pull in the others into it too, if you can find this stuff.
You may travel Japan, Korea, Australia.
Robert. Yeah. Yep. Yep. Australia was there. But actually, the New Zealanders were there, and Australians. And I don't think, as far as I know, I'm not sure. I haven't seen anything telling me this yet. I haven't seen any Koreans necessarily at Guadalcanal. I know they were at other battles because the Japanese conscripted them into the battle. And it, like in the North Korea, South Korea, the same thing happened. People were conscripted into the military. They didn't want to be in the military for different things. So yeah, it happens.
So about your study, military history, and how it's connected to the current Indo-Pacific region, Indo-Pacific strategy. Is there any connection or related U.S. policy, probably military policy?
I would say yes, because it's a lot of this stuff kind of going on out there in the Pacific region, again, with China and all that. It's similar to what happened in the past. And so some of the techniques or whatever that we used back then that didn't succeed probably should not be used again. And there's things that, like, amphibious operations was a critical component of the victory against Japan in World War II. So looking back at this type of techniques to how to fight the war, because it is so far away, either way you go, Atlantic, Pacific, whichever direction you decide to go around or whatever, it's just very, Pacific's very vast. And so a lot of area to cover. And so you need to have a force that can react quickly.
But also, U.S. has territory in Pacific, Hawaii, right, Guam, Marshall Island. That is U.S. owned territory. So even far, it's it's your territory in here. So
It helps. That definitely helps having those places. We lost a lot of those during the Pacific War, of course. They weren't ours or whatever. So those would allow us to have these staging areas maybe for battles in there. But we still need to have a concept of being able to do like a longshore attack some way, somehow, through helicopters or VSTOL or something that will, get us in behind lines if we need to go. So that's all. So I know they're talking about, especially, what's it called? Trying to think of the actual acronym. Anyhow, they're kind of going back to that somewhat. The Marine Corps is right now, and my brain is not remembering the acronym. Basically, they're wanting to have these military guys, Marines, I should say, where they're stationed in like Guam and all that type of thing, be able to be flexible reactionary forces when necessary to be able to just drop and go, and also be kind of on the quiet type of thing, so they're able to do what they need to do, get in and out quickly if they need to, type of thing. So they're working on that type of stuff. So it kind of harkens back to the World War II stuff, because they're trying to use some of that technology, ideas. I shouldn't say technology, with today's technology. So it's a different competition field because of technology. Like today, we have a lot more stronger anti-access devices than we had before, to fight with the new technology and everything. And China is really good at having a lot of that. So we have to come up with different ways to come in and create even playing field, so to speak, in those situations. And so one of the ways they can do that is these expeditionary forces that they're looking at right now, and having implanted in, and maybe using like floating bases or whatever in the Pacific to actually help them, do a quick launch here or there, but keep things under kind of quiet at the same time.
we can say US is still interested in Indo-Pacific strategy.
Yes, very much so. It's kind of like China, Russia are definitely some of the main focuses for the US right now.
So it's so broad, from Indo-Pacific strategy, I mean, from India to Indian Ocean and
right.
Big Ocean. So that US has to, cover very broad, big two oceans. So how's US Army strength? It's probably they can cope it, or it's risky, or how's your capacity?
The only branch of military at this moment that is where it's supposed to be is the Marine Corps. The Army is struggling, the Air Force, the Navy have all not reached their targets. Part of the reason was they kicked people out for saying no to a vaccine. And so they lost a lot of people that way. And so now they're trying to get those people to come back in. They're sending letters out to people saying, hey, you can come back and join us with, without this vaccine, and, type of thing. They're having a recruiting issue problem big time right now. In my opinion, it's a couple of factors that are driving it. One, I think, is the fact that people aren't being taught to love their country. Instead, they're being taught to hate their country. I've been seeing that within just like this, some of the behaviors you see, I'm saying, out in the public and the news or whatever, you're seeing these kids that have no idea what we stand for or any of that. So there's a lack of being educated about what role the US has played in history, the positive and the negative. Yes, we've definitely made our mistakes as a nation, and they need to know that balance, not just all the negatives. It feels like they're being taught. There's this big push for all these, instead of American history, they might have history on African Americans only. They might have history on Hispanics only, or versus American history where they're covering everybody, and understanding like the roles of maybe the Filipino Scouts helping us out in World War II, or understanding the different dynamics that are all involved. They're not getting that, so that's a big part of it. I think another part is some schools are not being as willing to let them in as they used to be. Again, it all goes, so that kind of hurts. And then you also have families not encouraging their kids to join the military. So those are all factors that I think are hindering the recruitment. And I know they're like lowering their standards, which is, trying to get their stuff up. And we have a generation growing up that is all about themselves, so to speak, versus others, even though they tell you otherwise. And so that's one reason they're not joining the military. That's just my theory. It's my my belief. And of course, not having Christ in their lives has a lot to do with all that too.
So since geographically and it's two big ocean, you have U.S. has to cope and you have to a kind of basis. You need not just a single partner. You should have a lot of partner in the region, multiple partnership. How
Right.
how is the partnership going on? Which is strong partnership and which are not strong partnership? How's its management? Because if you are not very tightly or strongly partnership in the middle of war, you can lose, So
Right.
how the strong of partnership and how many?
I think we're in the process of starting to build ships again. We need to build them. We haven't had a lot of building ships for a while, actually. So we're starting to rebuild some of those ships. I think the ones that are in the Navy, or whatever service they are, if there is a tightness among them, you can put one military down, I guess, over the other military, and that's just kind of that brotherly rivalry. But they're being trained together with each other and with other nations. So there's a dependence, a focus of depending on other nations to help out, so to speak. So those relationships we have, like with Burma or Japan or South Korea or whatever, are things that we're trying to make sure we strengthen right now to help out with that, so we don't have to drive so far, so to speak, to the Indo-Pacific region, and so we have forces there, so we're ready to go. And then, like I said, these guys are being trained for make sure they have critical thinking and things that they can, if they have to react quickly, individually, so to speak, sometimes because you get separated more, that they're going to be able to do that. And that's going to be like hopefully that will be an edge that they can think on the fly versus needing to be told exactly what to do. And so that's stuff that they're focusing on right now. And like I said, strengthening their bonds together as a military brand, as a military people too. So kind of part of it all.
Although you said they are very they are very attractive for a lot of partnership, but I did not satisfy in the case of Africa.
Right.
U.S. was terribly withdrawing from Africa, and other alliance and partner will see how it's going on. Even African case, there is not strong Taliban. Taliban is compared to other challenges, it's not that big. But U.S. the way withdrawing is terrible. So how can you compare to other partner, how they will trust U.S. Army in case of Afghan example?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think that's a hard road.
Right.
When you have a leader that has not exactly exemplified strength, and he, like you said, pulled out very. As soon as he did it, I'm like, he just messed up big time, because besides leaving weapons behind and the fiasco, he showed a weakness, that's there. And like in places like you said, Africa and the Middle East, Taliban and stuff like that are rising up. And I think we need to have again a stronger leader in that area, and hopefully praying for a strong leader for our next president. That's kind of part of it, because he's the commander in chief. So he's the big honcho over all the Army, the Navy, Marines, and all that. That's how it works here. And so they kind of drive the focus of the military. And so even though I'm sure there's guys that are like, I know there are the guys that want to go back and fix Afghanistan. Like, we should have gone up that way. Let's see if we can do something to fix it. And I think he's burning some of those bridges, like you said. So he's making that job harder for our military, because the military has to prove to others that, hey, we're worthy to be trustworthy, while your leader is showing that we're not trustworthy. So it's kind of a two-edged sword for our military right now. Sorry. I think our military is in a, like you said, a really hard spot right now because they are supposed to be that point of the spear to go anywhere and everywhere and send it and deploy it everywhere, but at the same time, they're not getting the sources they need, the resources that they need. One of my big concerns right now is our gas stockpile. We have emergency stockpile that Biden decided to use to force lower gas prices here, and he hasn't restocked it back up. And that stockpile was specifically for the U.S. military if we go to war, like in a place like the Pacific or where we need supplies and stuff. So that's a big concern of mine right now is us having the capability as far as like something as simple as gas to go fight a war. Do we have enough gas to continue fighting the war? That's something we're going to have to figure out a way to overcome because if we don't, we're going to be in trouble. We need to have that, have that stockpile there so these guys can do it. We need to make sure we have.
So who is the main responsible in Afghan? The military general or president or defense secretary, or how did you find it?
I would say it's a combination of the president and his joint chiefs of staff, the reason and the security secretary of state. I think the boots on the ground would have said we need to, we need to come out a different way. This whole situation in the Middle East, I think, I know there's people that I've heard stories of these people that were there who were killed from their families about how they wanted to be there and wanted to help the African people out and everything. And so our military did build a good relationship with the Afghan people. But when you have a leader pulling it like he did, just so he could say, hey, we pulled out of Afghanistan versus doing what was best for the military and the people there. I mean, pulling it like we did, we basically gave them all this technology, way to reverse technology. You're seeing what we have for weapons. And so that whole area is a big quagmire still. We're going to pay for that for a while, unfortunately, because, we have to rebuild back up from all that. And I know a lot of military veterans are very frustrated right now, and some of them are running.
I mean, weapon technology are very good tool, but it could not be able to use, and
Right.
There was no coordination between that time Afghani government. They have very much equal number with Taliban. Even they have more better weapon and equipment, but yeah, we see no coordination. Why
Right.
there was such thing absent, and why U.S. is not minded let the democracy government can grow up and uh,
Right.
democracy. I mean that is in their hand at the time until they grow up. They can
Right.
have a decision let the democracy grow up or not.
Right.
Why
Right.
don't have such kind of thinking, or what's uh, there is a very unexpected decision action.
Yeah, it was very unexpected. I Unfortunately, I think for the U.S., President Biden has been more a hindrance than anything else. He's been in Congress forever, so it's not like he doesn't know what should be happening or whatever. He's just choosing to do his own agenda versus doing what's best for the country, and which also happens to be what's best for Afghanistan and the Middle East and the world because we destabilized it by pulling out the way we did. And it's just, I mean, you can see that. I mean, you have Israel, you have, Syria, this whole quagmire in the Middle East right now because of his decision. And so, yeah, we need, and I could see people not wanting to trust us right now. I understand that not wanting to trust because, we've always been the nation that's been there for people, and we didn't do that. We pulled out, and I think if we would have went in with a plan, a better plan, we didn't really go in with a good plan.
Right.
When we went to Afghanistan, we needed to go in there and say, okay, we're going to come in here, we're going to build a democracy, we're going to build it, and people need to be told that democracy work takes a while. It's not like you go in, you win a war, you pull out, and democracy just pops up. It's got to be a generation has to be risen in it, type of thing. Like Japan, we went in there, we helped them keep their cultural stuff, but we also worked on democracy stuff with them, and they are a thriving democracy. They're doing doing very well. Um, South Korea, I remember reading something a Korean wrote about the fact that North and South Korea flip flopped when communism came in and democracy came into South Korea. So like you said, you need to have a plan of what to do. And there's people that are like, well, we can't go in and make democracies in other places. And I think that's some of the thinking that led to the debacle in Middle East. Is like, okay, we can't be here building whatever. And unfortunately, I think sometimes the American people are too finicky. They're too they understand that war is costly and takes time, and rebuilding takes time, and they want it done, and it's done, and it doesn't work like that.
So far, U.S. military that can be appreciated only Japan and South Korea democracy fruitful out of U.S. Control, U.S. military control in many countries. Even Philippines is not very good fruitful, there was not fruitful.
Right.
They are not able to properly develop Philippines. Still, they have poverty.
Right.
Properly.
Definitely still has their area of pocket resistance, and these little wars that pop up and down. Yeah. And again, that I don't know, Philippines, I think it's just the resistance was never gotten rid of, type of thing. And so of course it pops up. And we can't be everywhere all the time. It's just impossible. We don't have a big enough military for one thing, and we don't have the American support for another. So that's a big thing, it takes especially when your military's been downsized and everything.
Right.
History has shown when the US downsizes itself to a really small army or military force, that we end up getting ourselves in trouble. And so hopefully that doesn't repeat itself, but it's happened many, many times.
India is a big country, and it's supposed to be together. It's part of Quad, members. But the relationship between U.S. India military also not that solid. When they
Right.
desire, they just communicate. When they don't have desire, they don't communicate at all. The relationship is not solid, right? How did you see India Army and US Army? It's part of Indo-Pacific, You need to be, all things should be concerned.
I don't think, like you said, I don't think the relationship there is great because historically speaking, we haven't necessarily always been, that good relationship with India, like you said. I don't know if it's because it was part of Britain for a long time, and then it hasn't, it's a British Empire thing, or if it's just what it is. I know that it has not been on the main radar. It's like one of those secondary places as far as the focus has been. I know India has so much. It's very important that we have that relationship with India. Like you said, a strong relationship with other nations is vital for a good, strong force. And right now we're failing in that area. We're just failing in that area, even though I know there's military people that are working on it, but you can only go so far when your Secretary of State and your Secretary of Defense and your president don't see those things as their main issue.
Right.
So
I mean, even as you said, you are feeling those gaps, but even U.S. alone interest may be not able to do it. The India side, whether they are willing to follow and cooperate together, we still not clear.
right. Yep.
The relationship is not solid, and the other country in the region, in ASEAN member, Singapore is small. It's not much capacity, but they are part of alliance, military alliance with US. It's very small cities. But Indonesia, Malaysia are also not that much. I mean, they are not really cooperate, just on the occasionally meeting or talking or something, but not solid, right?
Right. Yeah, we need to be talking to our neighbors, our allies and stuff, and building on those relationships. Excuse me. Um, to, like you said, strengthen them. I mean, we are not able or capable at this point to fight, in my opinion, to fight a long-term war with what we have. And we need those allies because that gives us bases to land at, for one thing. Um,
Right.
if we don't, we're going to end up back in the same position as we were in World War II, where we had to fight to get bases, to get closer to Japan to fight. And that's not a good scenario to be in again. We did it once, but to do it twice, have to, there's a lot more nations involved now than there was before, one thing. And China doesn't necessarily have a problem with doing whatever they want, type of thing. And so you got to be prepared. And history has shown, that a powerful nation can run over a bunch of islands if they want and take over, even if you own those islands. So we have to have the military and the friendships to be prepared for something like this again. Because if we don't have both, it's going to be a long haul.
And, if you want to, as you said, U.S. interest in Indo-Pacific strategy, but it will also cost a loss. I don't know, U.S. strength and capacity, as said, is still sufficient to cover all the expenses because you need to spend a lot of money too. How
right.
U.S. still capable assets or spending for all these things.
We right now, it seems to be a trend. If you watch the history in the U.S. as far as presidents, who's in office and who's not, you'll notice our military fluctuates up and down depending on who's in office and who's not. Right now, I don't think we've ever had an issue where we've been completely, I don't think we've been where we're at now. We've been low, but we were low because of the government saying you had to pull down the military forces type of thing. And we've had that happen here with Biden and all, but they're now not being able to meet their goals. And that's something that's new. We've always been able to pull people up. Part of that reason we're not able to is we used to have a draft. And after Vietnam, they did away with the draft because there was so much uproar here. And consequently, we don't have a draft. So we can't just pull forces in automatically. We have it set up to do it, but that would take a president or Congress saying we need to do this. I guess I should say both, because Congress makes the rules and the president is supposed to execute it. So we need something like that. Would be the only way we could quickly build a military back up. But we'd be like World War II all over again, so to speak, because we'd have to rebuild our industrial complex. We'd have to be rebuilt. We'd have to rebuild our forces to that degree up there, which means a lot of time for training and all that. And like you said, technology is not everything. You need to be able to have that communication, how to communicate with different ways or act independently. If we don't have a strong military in that area where they're being taught that, and I know from going to conferences and stuff like that, that is something that the military themselves are concerned about, having these people capable to creatively think instead of relying on technology all the time. That's something that they're working on. Again, another area they're trying to work on. I know in the past, I don't know about the Army, how well they've done with this, but the Marine Corps has usually tries to learn from their past mistakes and build on them. The reason I know that is I've done a lot of this operational stuff. You probably noticed that, and that's kind of where my focus has been. And so I don't necessarily know how the Army, has, dealt with history, so to speak, in the past. Even though I'm looking at them now, I still don't really understand all that yet. I'm still building on that. It's such a big, huge area.
How do you see challenges compared to during Cold War, Soviet challenges, and now Chinese challenges? Because during Soviet era, it's only one way, the military hardware challenges, but now China's cases double challenges, just not just military, also economically.
Yeah.
Do you think U.S. has strength to stand up?
Yeah, I think we could stand up, but first we have to acknowledge that uh, Russia is a bigger threat than people think. Um,
Right.
I think people have a time to downplay Russia,
But
and
still they have some kind of capacity, right?
right, they have some kind of capacity. I mean, that's obvious. It's kind of funny because when the Ukraine thing happened, I wasn't surprised at all. And I think because Russia, historically speaking, has always wanted to have a buffer around them. And they consider themselves the protector of the Slavic nations around them. And because of that, it's not surprising that they're trying to take some of that territory back that they lost before. Now, saying that doesn't, right now, Russia's kind of like, their eyes are kind of focused on Ukraine and all that. But I wouldn't put it past Russia to run in to help China, or China went in and help Russia. They've both have um, been like buddies at times, and then they're like basically they're two enemies against each other because they see things differently, but the same side of the coin in reality. And consequently, you need to be prepared for both of them to work together.
Some authoritarian system, I say.
Yeah, I mean, they have supplies. They have, um, on paper, they I know paper doesn't mean anything because in reality it comes down to boots on the ground in reality, but it does, on paper Russia and China can be a pretty formidable enemy, a foe, and if North Korea decides to join in, it get pretty tough.
North Korea will definitely join you.
Yeah, and so we need to be prepared, and not just like, I know North Korea is also one of those nations that kind of gets pushed aside right now by people, but it needs to be kept in the equation, just like China and Russia together, because they are axis, so to speak. I mean,
Sometimes small country are important for equation. That's why I want US also seriously concern Burma democracy, liberal democratization, and to support. If you can capture Burma as part of US alliance, I mean, your equation will be very much, satisfactory.
yeah, we definitely should use Burma. I mean, you are our ally. Why, we should be using our allies there and building on those relationships, like you said. It's important to do that. If we don't build on what we have, then I mean, we really can't go it alone. We can't. We need other countries to help us out. We're not in a position to go alone. And besides, it's kind of stupid not to utilize our other resources, our friends. And if it's something in the Middle East or East Asia, it's might be more important to you than it would be to us, so to speak. And so we need to be there to support each other, to help each other out, type of thing. And so I think that's very important, to do that. And part of that is having ambassadors and diplomats in other nations. And I know Biden just pulled some of those away just recently. And so he's not showing that support that he should be showing to these nations, like Burma or India or whatever. And maybe part of that is the fact that
They, they,
Americans
they
don't
did
understand
not invest, right? US is not invest anything here, any investment for military or for any diplomacy.
Mhm.
You know, it should be invested.
Right, we should be. I mean, we were, in that region for a good while, so we need to, still build on those relationships and everything, because we don't want Russia or China coming in and taking over you guys. We don't want that.
Right.
You know, and Americans need to get behind our military and understand that what the military does, their role, and to understand that sometimes the military is not just a war machine, but sometimes it is like you said, it's building those relationships with other nations. It's training them to know how, with the new equipment, or learning how to work together as a nation, as two nations, or even just building friendships. We've
Right.
gone in many times, in many places we've gone in, we've offered medical care. I know my dad in Vietnam tells the story of when he was a corpsman, that this Vietnamese family brought him their grandmother, and he's thinking, oh, she's dead. There's no way she's alive, because there's no pulse or whatever. And as soon as they gave her the antibiotic, boom, she sat up, she was fine. And so that's part of what we do as a military. People
Right.
don't realize we need to sell that.
That's why
But
I've been promoting and advocating for liberal democracy in Burma. All these Burmese, let them know liberal democracy, and it will be in line with US, Europe, or Australia, so it can be, aligned together. So
right.
support us.
Yep, support each other. Way to go.
Thank you, Lynn, for today.